Okay. Okay, so we shall start seated, as we so often do, for our final evening class. Yay! I hope that they've worked well enough that we're now just sliding into sleep magically whenever we feel like it. We will begin with Ganesha Mudra for today. So we just clasp our hands. It's not too fancy. There is some thinking that whichever hand is on top is the energy that you would like to tap into. So more masculine energy, more fiery. Maybe if you're doing this first thing in the morning, we'd put the right hand on top. But since we're doing this in the evening, put the left hand on top, tapping into our more feminine energy of yin, moon, cooling down, that idea. And Ganesha is our remover of obstacles. So your obstacle, in this case, I was thinking sleep, or things that are hurdles to our sleep could be our obstacle. Something else may come to mind, but let's use this gesture to imagine this obstacle just being lifted and removed from our path. Option to close our eyes here. And we'll begin with our 3-part breath again. So with every inhale, feeling the breath first drop down, noticing movement in our belly, then our ribs, then our chest, as though we are filling our lungs from bottom to top. And with our arms in this position, we may notice more movement of the ribs out side to side. And I'll offer us the option today for breath retention that is supposed to be more balancing. So we can take a full 3-part breath in, inhaling belly, ribs, and chest. Pause just for a moment with the lungs full. Exhale, and pause again just for a moment with the lungs empty. So we might think of this breath as a 4-1-4-1 breath. Inhale for 4. Pause for 1, exhale for 4, pause for 1. You may have done square breathing or box breathing before. We could throw that in instead. Just extending the breath holding out longer. Inhale 4, pause for 4, exhale 4, pause for 4. Yogi's choice, whatever feels best for you, remembering the most important thing is that we feel we can get enough air here. Let's give it a few more rounds of breath, but we'll switch our hands so that both palms are up in a gesture of receptivity. So we have removed our obstacles and now we're ready to receive something better in its place. And let's picture this image, whatever it is that you're hoping coming into your life, picturing either how you'll feel when it comes to you, if you don't know what it is, or picturing it coming to you if you have a clear picture of what you're looking for. Let's go ahead and rest our hands anywhere that's comfortable, noticing how we're feeling now. Using this time as a reminder to ourselves, of course, you can modify any of our movements or techniques based on how you're feeling to make them as appropriate for yourself as possible. And when you're ready, we'll go ahead and open our eyes. May need to reset our posture, sitting up tall, give our shoulders a roll, up, down, and back. I'm gonna spotlight myself for the rest of our time. There we go. All right, and let's get into our movements of the spine. We'll start with a seated cat and cow. I'll show us from the side. You can stay where you are, but kind of like a turtle hiding in its shell, we're gonna tuck our tailbones, stretch out our back muscles, tuck our chins. And then let's move in the opposite direction, lengthening out the back of the legs, untucking our tailbone, lifting chest to sky, lifting our chins as well. We can squeeze our shoulder blades together. That's our seated cat and cow. Let's keep going. So you may be, of course, in a chair. You could do this with your legs in a different position, maybe sitting on your heels with your legs extended. But we're going through our movements of the spine. So as long as we're moving our spines, it's all good. You might like to really shift your body weight forward and back as well, or you might like to stay more centered. I will leave that up to you, but let's go a few more times each way. I'd like to imagine these movements of the spine, sort of like the Tin Woodsman, as though we're taking an oil can to each one of the bones in our spine and lubricating everything, loosening up, getting us ready for movement. Let's go once more each way. And we'll meet back in a neutral position. Perfect, sitting tall. Let's go through lateral flexion. So let's take one arm up, lengthening through one side of the ribs or lengthening through one side of our spine, and then we'll bring it down and we'll switch the opposite direction. Up and over. And then down through center. Let's match breath to movement, inhaling up, exhaling down. So this can be a great way of kind of burning up any lingering energy at the end of the day before we sleep. But the act of matching breath to movement can also be very calming, very soothing. If we're working with any difficult emotions, matching breath to movement can be a good way of causing, what the yoga world always calls a shift in our mood, a shift in our energy. And maybe while we're going, we want to do a larger range of motion. We can if we like. We'll go once more each way. Careful not to go too far. The movement is still kind of controlled. And we'll come back through center. We're ready for rotation. Let's get into rotation a little bit differently today. I find this one's really good if you've been sitting in front of the computer and you're getting that like kind of head forward or rounded shoulders. We'll take our hands to heart center and pull back one elbow at a time. This can give us a greater awareness of our upper back and the muscles of our upper back. Rather than having our shoulders rounded forward, we're pulling them back. Perfect. And then let's make our way into a slower rotation with our whole body. Let's twist towards one side. Doesn't really matter which. Keep going, going, going. When you've gone as far as you can go, we can let our hands rest to help hold us up. So maybe we're picturing our arms as a second and third spine, giving us length and support. And we may be turning to look over the shoulder, or maybe keeping the head in neutral. take one more breath in and out. We can make our way back through, and let's go into the other side the same way. So we'll pull one elbow back, pull, 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 and we've gone as far as we can go with our core strength. We can release our arms for support. Maybe pressing down, depending on what you're sitting on and how long your arms are, to help us grow taller. There is a lot that we do, turning the head, holding the breath. It might make you kind of dizzy or feel unwell. It's always optional. We're here, we're staying present, we're breathing. Everything else is icing on the cake. Go ahead and come back through center. Oh, all right, let's take the soles of the feet together for butterfly. So we might like to loosen up our hips. First, an old kind of gym class stretch. And maybe in gym class or other places you've done this, the focus was on really pushing the knees down as far as you could go. And actually a lot more people are comfortable lifting the knees just a little bit. And again, we can be focusing on our posture rather than rounding forward, trying to get as far as we can go by staying more lifted and then hinging forward from our hips, keeping a tall posture. Maybe we're tucking the chin here to smooth out the back of the neck, keeping the spine in line, cervical spine, and then the rest of our spine. And let's come back to our breath here. We can relax our abdominal muscles a bit, breathing into belly. Feeling inflation in the ribs, front, side, and back. Maybe we fold a little further with the next couple of exhales. And if we want to release and round a little bit, that's okay too. Let's come up through center. Bring our knees up. And let's start our forward fold with bent knees for today. Again, comes from our posture. We're hinging forward and then straightening the legs as far as we can while still keeping this tall posture. So we may only straighten them a little bit. Stop straightening them when it kind of gets to this point, that the legs going straight. Pull our body into a slumped posture. We'll hold on to this posture. Might need to smooth any extra fabric or flesh out of the way. And then some of us, yes, need to be quite bendy. The back of the legs really let us move into this. And we can choose stillness, hanging out, or maybe you're feeling a little fidgety, there's some kind of anxiety or movement in the body. We could point and flex our feet, we could wiggle our toes. Maybe we're doing little movements with our breath, inhaling, feeling a lift, and exhaling, folding forward. And then after we're here for a few rounds of breath, the same as with our butterfly stretch, you may feel that the body kind of wants to release and round just a little bit through the spine. So we're not slumping, but kind of releasing. let's come back through seated, coming into our tall posture. We'll do a little windshield wipe for our legs. We can bend our knees. We may have to help them out a little bit. We can rest back on our hands and then release our hips side to side. It's a little tougher if anybody at home or watching the recording is in a chair at this point. Anything we can do to kind of loosen the legs up, move them around, we can give them shape. Anything like this, it's all good. We're going to come into a wide-legged forward fold. So let's do the same as we just did. So some of us will be like really tight in our hamstrings and it's hard to come into a seated position. Take your time with it. Some of us will just fold really far into it. So spider stretches, it's sometimes called. We start sitting tall with the legs bent. We can have our hands pressing down to help us grow tall. And then as our body allows, we can straighten our legs out. We might need our hands in behind for support or in front for support. And let's see, let your inner wisdom guide you. Do you need a little bit of movement to stay here? Maybe a sway side to side or a rock forward and back. Maybe we're ready for stillness. Yogi's choice. Whether we choose stillness or movement, we can always readjust once we're here. So after a few breaths, we might think, I want to bend the knees more, or I want to straighten them. I want to take the feet further apart or closer together. And we can make any of those adjustments in response to however we feel while we're here. Make our way into a back bend to complement all of this forward folding. Let's go ahead and gather our legs in. Might take a second after doing so many deep forward folds. Let's come back to seated. We'll take our hands in behind. We can lift our chest the same as we've been doing. If it feels good to straighten the legs out, we can straighten them out and we can point the feet or flex. Since we do have our body weight on our hands, let's spread our fingers wide. Strong foundation. And rather than letting the chin lift super, super high, it should be maybe a fist from our chest. Something like that. Maybe a little bit more, a little bit less, depending on your comfort level, but we should be able to comfortably breathe, swallow, hum, something like that. Let's take one more breath, feeling the expansion in heart center. And then we are ready to make our way all the way down onto our backs. And then when we get there, take a moment for yourself to readjust as necessary. So you might really like this windshield wiping idea. And we'll come back through center. And we'll come into a hamstring stretch and an option for half a happy baby. So we'll go ahead and give the right leg a big hug. This is one of our digestive postures. So you may feel, especially if you just ate, pressing your thigh into your belly, that it has some effect on digestion. That's okay. And again, one of these things that we don't want to push too far. If it makes you feel a little unwell, just leave it. We can hold the leg without pressing it into our internal organs. And we'll make our way into our hamstring stretch. Again, fairly similar to gym class. If you did these back in school, a straight leg. It might be a very, very tight stretch for you, in which case one or both legs can be bent. And I would say the most important thing is that we can breathe, and then that our posture and alignment is pretty good. The least important thing is how far we go in the stretch. So if we're feeling sensation down the back of the leg, perfect, fantastic. If you can't reach your foot or your ankle, doesn't matter. We can always be holding our pant leg. I know for some people, I've seen it even, they're more comfortable holding the edges of their mat or pressing the hands down for stability and just using their own strength to hold the leg up. And we'll make our way into happy baby. So you may prefer to stay like this, or we can take our leg off to the side and bend the knee. So if we have our right leg going off to the right side, now our left arm can help to balance us out so we don't topple over. And now the stretch is probably in the inner thigh more, maybe the glutes, the muscles of our bum. And again, depending on your flexibility level, it might feel really good to add more sensation straightening the leg out or letting the leg go really far to the side. It might feel better to have the knee more pointed towards the underarm. Shape it in whatever way you need it. Fantastic. So there's a lot of benefit to listening to that inner guidance. And if we don't know which modification to choose, you can kind of play with it, see which ones you like after trying a couple of them. But for now, we're going to keep moving. So let's draw this leg back in. And we'll switch spots. So let's do a long stretch here, getting some length in the front of the hip that was just short. Drawing our opposite leg in, give it a big hug. And when we're ready, we can move into our hamstring stretch, making sure, of course, that we can breathe, that our spine is pretty flat on the floor. And we can extend the leg a little or a lot. Maybe we're holding onto it, maybe we're not. And let's see if we can be stretching out our breath. So if we were doing inhale for 4 and exhale for 4, encouraging maybe going to 5 or 6 without forcing. Making our way into half a happy baby, bending our knee, this time out to the side. We can hold ankle or thigh, so we're getting more of an inner thigh stretch. And then depending on how you like the angle of the stretch, the leg can come really far over to the side or be more upright. With our leg out of the way, we're probably noticing now, you can take a deeper breath and let the belly expand. And then our free arm can just be off to the side as a counterweight. feels like this side just about matches the other side, we can bring it in. And let's take a long stretch here. And then anything else you'd like to do to reset. So maybe knees to chest, windshield wipe the legs, anything else that feels good. And then coming into figure 4. So we can plant our feet again. Take right ankle over left thigh. Rather than letting this foot flop around or yank on it, let's flex the foot. So we have the angle in our foot, very similar to when we're standing on the floor. And then we can pull in behind the thigh, or maybe holding heel and knee. And the beauty of this is that we can be actually quite aggressive and get a lot of sensation and really pull in, get some upper body strength and a deep outer thigh stretch. Or we can be very passive with it, and we're getting the same kind of lengthening for our muscles, but with a deeper sense of relaxation. So both are good. Again, the end goal of the stretch is not to look any certain way, but to feel whatever you'd like to feel. Maybe you want to feel more passive, less sensation, or you want to feel more active and more sensation. Both are good. In fact, we have enough time to try both of them. So let's take a few more rounds of breath here. We can release and switch sides. Taking left over right, flexing the foot. We can pull in a little or a lot. Might take a few fidgets to find a good spot and settle in. And then the longer you hold the pose, you might find you need more fidgets and more adjustments. Perfect. That's just part of the process. We'll release, we can plant our feet. And I'll offer as a suggestion to kind of wipe the slate clean and start fresh. I always like to lift into bridge pose. We can walk our shoulder blades underneath our backs, press into our heels, and lift hips to sky. And you may like to lift and lower a couple of times, maybe shift one hip higher than the other. We'll go ahead and lower down, and we'll come into a twist here. So I'll offer a more gentle twist and then options to add more sensation. Kind of like our bridge, a little teeny tiny one. Let's do just a little lift and shift our hips over to the right. So we're now more on our left side of our bum. And then we can let our knees drop to the left side. And you may like to straighten the left leg. So the bottom leg straightens. We can readjust. And just like our figure 4, we can make it more active or more passive. So if you feel like there's a lot of activity going on in your body or in your mind, then we can be drawing our top knee towards the floor and our top shoulder in the opposite direction towards the floor. So a really active twist moving diagonally across the body. Or you may feel totally chill and blissed out and you just want to be limp here and let gravity do the work. Maybe with the knees stacked, perfect. Again, listening to our bodies and then responding in whatever way you think you need. Let's draw ourselves back through center. No rush to get there. You might like a moment to reset. And we'll go through that same setup to get to the other side. So we have to offset our hips to keep our spine a little healthier as we move into our twist. So in this case, we're going to do a little bridge lift. Take our hips to the left so that we're resting more on the right side of your bum. And then we can let our knees drop to the right. And you may, of course, like one leg bent, one leg straight, or both legs together. We can make it very passive, just hanging out here. Or we can have that more active twist, drawing our top shoulder towards the floor and drawing our top knee towards the floor. Moving diagonally across the body in opposite directions, having this dynamic tension so our muscles are working. When it feels like the second side matches the first side, we can make our way back through center. And again, any kind of movement that you would like to reset the body. And let's come into our basic exercise. So when you're ready, we'll come into stillness on the back. And we'll interlace our hands in behind the head. And it is possible to do this one seated, or if you have any shoulder issues, to do it just with one hand. The idea is that our hands put a little bit of pressure at the muscles that attach to the base of the skull. So if we want to feel in behind the head, we'll feel skull, And then we'll feel the squishy part right beneath that are our muscles. And you might even notice that the muscles engage as you turn your eyes side to side. That's the area that we're trying to get into. So we can rest our heads back on our hands. Probably if you are using your hands as a pillow or even an actual pillow under your head, you're probably putting weight in the right spot. And this is supposed to be a reset for our nervous system to bring us into a calmer state. So you can do this to start the day, as a pause in the middle of the day, or to end the day. We'll keep our bodies still, but let's pick one side and we'll turn our eyes all the way to that side without overstraining. All right, so if you tend to be that person who does things to 110%, just work at 75%. So let's take our eyes all the way in one direction. And we're just going to hang out here, let gravity do the work. And you may notice while we're here, something happens. You want to yawn, sneeze, your sinuses clear up, you want to take a deep breath and sigh. Whatever that thing is that comes up, go ahead and do it, let it happen. And then when you're ready, we'll come back through center. And I always sort of feel like, you know, in the old cartoons, when someone gets bonked on the head and their eyes spin around, I kind of feel like that and need to recalibrate in the center for a second. And then we can turn our eyes all the way to the other side. So the idea is that we're putting a little bit of pressure on the muscles in the back of the neck that are connected to the movements of our eyes. And this can release some of the pressure inside the head. We're also pressing on the nerves that are very close to the brain. And someone was telling me recently, this actually has an impact on the connective tissue in your brain. That's really outside of my scope of understanding, but all we need to know is if this exercise works for you, perfect. You're doing it right. Let's come back through center. If our hands are still comfortable here, we can leave them here, but let's all give it a sigh to release any tension in the head, neck, jaw, or body. So deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. Just letting the jaw hang slack. You might like to add a little noise on the exhale. Let's do it a couple more times. Really passive on the breath out. All right. And we'll do our 4, 7, 8 breath. This again is supposed to really reset our nervous system. So we can be here in this kind of neutral position. And we can bring our arms and legs out like a starfish, or you might like this diamond position that we've done before with the knees coming out into sleeping butterfly. And with our arms up overhead, elbows bent, maybe bringing our fingertips together so that our arms and legs are in the shape of a diamond. This might feel really nice, open, expansive. It's easy for you to take a deep breath in. If it's too much, it's too open, it doesn't feel good. Bring it in however you like. We can take hands to belly or chest. We can let the knees knock together. Again, letting your body, your inner teacher, be your guide. All I do is give suggestions. And our 4, 7, 8 breath. So we inhale 4, pause and hold the breath with the lungs full for 7, and then exhale for 8. Let's go ahead and do it. Nice deep inhale, counting in your own time to 4. Very gentle as we hold the breath for 7 with the lungs full. and then long exhale out the nose, or maybe like you're blowing through a straw for 8. And that's our 4, 7, 8 breath here. I'll give us enough time to do roughly 4 to 8 rounds of breath, depending on how quickly you breathe. In for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. The same as we did with our stretches, let's not stress over the end product looking like anything in particular. We'll use that 4, 7, 8 as a guideline. Might breathe a little differently, slightly different count. It's all good. If breath retention doesn't feel good, we can do a 4, 8 breath. And if ever you feel panicked, anxious, you can't get enough air, just return to any natural style of breathing. We'll start to make our way into our final relaxation. Again, any kind of final movements you would like, any final pose you would like to be in. I will offer legs up the wall. This is supposed to be one of the best things we can do before bed, especially if you wake up in the night to pee and you have a lot of swelling in your feet towards the end of the day. If you're on your feet a lot, this can help just with the return to your core, so that hopefully it leaves your body before you go to sleep. So how do we do legs up the wall? The secret is to get your bum as close to the wall as possible. And I'll show us using just this tiny piece of wall here. If you have a full wall, even better. And we can come into what we sometimes call baby pose or a fetal position. We could be using a chair in place of the wall so that our legs are bent. But let's get our bum either up to the legs of the chair or right up to the wall. And then we're using the strength in our core and our arms to pull our legs up. Might take some fidgeting or reworking to settle in. If you do have a full wall, we might like to bend the legs and take them out wide, like that happy baby that we did, or a butterfly pose. If you only have a chair, then of course, we'll have our legs bent on the chair, on the seat of the chair. You could use your couch or anything else. You could even pile cushions so your legs are just on an incline. And if you really have nothing, or if you're in a crowded room full of people, we can just leave our legs up overhead. And you might like to take your hands in a diamond under your bum and your pelvis to be a little bit more stable. Anything goes. If we feel good, we're in the right place. And if by chance this does not work for you, please be in any other position that is comfortable and conducive to rest for you. And I, of course, will sit up so that I don't fall asleep during our relaxation. So I'll give us a minute here to settle in and return to our 3-part breath. We can relax the muscles of the face. See if we can release shoulders away from our ears. To be more aware of our breath, maybe taking hand to chest or belly or both hands, sort of in between our ribs and our belly. So we can stay here for the rest of our time together. If you're a fan of legs up the wall, if you are not, feel free to come out at any time. But let's finish with a body scan. So we may imagine as we reach each part of our body that we're putting that body part to sleep for the night. And let's start with our feet, starting at the tips of our toes. Imagining that we're putting each toe to sleep one by one. And as we bring our awareness to this area, simply noticing any sensation or feeling that's going on in that area. Using our powers of observation, doing our best not to tell ourselves a story. Simply receiving this raw data, maybe saying to ourselves, tingling or cool or itchy or whatever other feeling we notice. And then let's continue moving our awareness on to the soles of the feet. Putting the soles of the feet to sleep. And the tops of the feet. Noticing sensation on the skin, and then seeing if we can sense the inner parts of the foot as well. Moving our awareness, heel and ankle. Putting these parts of the foot to sleep. Let's draw our awareness up through the lower leg. Imagine that we're putting the lower leg to sleep. And noticing that we can hold in our awareness just the right leg, just the left leg, maybe both legs together. And seeing if as we hold our attention here, the sensation changes moment by moment. Let's do the same as we come up to our knees. We can hold both of them in our awareness or one at a time. And if we take each moment as it comes, maybe noticing slight changes in either our perception or the actual sensation that we're experiencing. And then putting our knees to sleep. Let's move up to the upper leg. Holding this area in our awareness, putting it to sleep, and seeing what happens if we just stop to observe it. Drawing our awareness up to the pelvis. And I know the story I always share with myself here is that this is where things get more interesting. So I always think we have more layers of muscle inside the pelvic bowl, outside the pelvic bowl, from the front of the pelvis to the back of the pelvis, from the top of the pelvis to the bottom of the pelvis. This is where we start to see our internal organs. Maybe noticing the weight of your legs and pelvis resting down. Maybe imagining that we can breathe deeply enough that our lungs drop into the pelvis. And then let's put the pelvis to sleep, bringing our awareness up through the torso. Seeing if we can sense the movement of our internal organs, digestion, breath, heartbeat. And imagining this area of the body going to sleep for the night. Noticing how the torso is being supported by whatever you're resting against. That feeling of being held, even if it's just by gravity. And the fact that you are resting down into the surface beneath you. We can bring our awareness down the length of each arm, putting our arms to sleep. Relaxing everything right out to the tip of each finger. Imagining that we are relaxing our fingerprints. And simultaneously also that we can be aware of sensation right down to our fingerprints. can we imagine that some of the weight of the world leaves our shoulders? Our necks can grow a little longer. And finally, bringing our awareness back to our heads and faces, maybe ironing out any stress lines. And at this time, not just imagining that our physical body is relaxing and being put to bed, but also the chatter of our minds. Imagining that we can turn down the volume on the radio of our minds and tune into a station that is peaceful. Option to stay exactly as you are. You may like to take hands over your heart if you are lying down, or we can bring hands to heart center. And then we have the option, of course, of finishing in a seated position together. No rush to get there. We can keep this lovely energy that we've created, whatever that is for you. Maybe noticing how you're feeling and choosing a word to describe that emotion or physical sensation. And then when we finally get there, long, tall spine. Thank you so much for choosing to spend this time here with me tonight. From my light to yours, namaste.